Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. I'm a Forbes contributor covering social entrepreneurship and impact investing, and today we're talking about crowdfunding, and I've assembled a group of some of the leading experts on crowdfunding in the United States. It's really an honor to have with us Doug Elinoff, partner at Elinoff, Grossman and Scholl, Joy Schoethler from Leverage PR, Phil Rackison from Energy Thunders, and also Todd Crosland from Seed Equity Ventures. Folks, thank you all for joining me today. It's just a thrill to have all of you. We may yet be joined by one other expert. Keep your fingers crossed, everybody. But Joy, perhaps I could turn to you to get us started, to just give us a quick history of crowdfunding and of investment crowdfunding, commonly called equity crowdfunding. But tell us where we are and how we got here.
Yeah, thank you. So the Jobs Act was passed in 2012, and with the Jobs Act came basically the ability, one, for general solicitation with Title II of the Jobs Act, as well as the ability for everybody to invest with Title III of the Jobs Act, which is what we're very excited about. It also changed some of the filing regulations, the blue sky filing regulations with Title IV, with Reg A Plus offerings that have been happening through platforms like Start Engine now for the last couple of months.
It really is a big change to be able to invest for ordinary investors to be legally allowed to invest in startups. It was almost impossible before. Maybe, Doug, you would just take a minute and give us a little overview of the regulatory import of these changes, just for some context.
Devin, and appreciate the invitation tonight. The background is since 1933, after the Great Depression, the presumption was if you wanted to sell securities in this country, you had to do it by way of registering the securities with the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is a very involved process. It includes disclosure, financials, working with lawyers, investment bankers, unless there was an exemption from registration. And those exemptions were pretty narrow in the scheme of things. And the general retail audience for startup deals was generally not permitted into deals. And so what's happened with the Jobs Act and Title III, as Joy has mentioned, it now allows for investors with lesser means than wealthy Americans to participate in interesting investment opportunities that they were otherwise with previously.
So, Todd, I want to just turn to you for a moment and ask you to talk a little bit about how you will implement crowdfunding, regulation crowdfunding next year under these new rules, using your model as a broker-dealer.
Sure. Thank you, Devin, and we're grateful for the opportunity to be with this panel as well today. If we look at the current landscape for investing in early-stage startups, it's basically reserved for accredited investors and venture capital firms. And today there might be a few 100,000 angel investors, accredited investors in the United States, but with Title III of the Jobs Act finally passing, that will open up the potential market to millions and millions of potential unaccredited investors. But as far as with Seed Equity Ventures, right now we have entrepreneurs and investors from over 117 countries on our platform, and we're primarily doing what's called 506C and 506B offerings. So we continue in our plan to offer both 506C and 506B offerings, but come May 16th, when the Title III of the Jobs Act becomes effective, we'll begin to then offer, it'll be Title III equity crowdfunding offerings. And so we'll cast a wider net for non-accredited investors as well. So we would anticipate continue to offering the 506C offerings to accredited investors and small venture funds,
Sure.
But now cast a really broad net to offer this to non-accredited investors as well.
How do you expect that this will change your screening process for deals, or will it?
I don't think that it will. So we're very selective, and at least on the 506c offerings, we invest in many of those with our own capital as well. So I think we'll have the same rigors to be approved on the platform, and with background checks and due diligence on the business model and the founders. So I think the rigors of the application process and probably the limited amount of people that get approved, that will remain a high standard.
So I wonder, Philip, if you would just take a minute and talk about how your model contrasts. Obviously, you're industry specific, but beyond that, you plan to operate as a FINRA registered platform rather than as a broker-dealer. How will that differ?
So that's correct, Devin. So right now we operate under a 506B structure for accredited investors only. We've had quite a few unaccredited investors sign up, and of course they are funneled into a different category because our accreditation process puts them into the non-accredited category. So they can't invest right now. But what we're going to do is, as an adjunct to what we're doing right now, we will form and register a FINRA registered funding portal that will be essentially like a broker-dealer light, and it will allow all the millions and millions of unaccredited investors, the other 95% of America, to invest in deals, energy deals, through that particular platform.
That's a very different model. With a portal, are you allowed under these rules to screen deals and be selective about them, or do you have to kind of take all comers?
So the rules do allow you to screen deals. I mean, you absolutely have discretion as to what deals you put up. However, when acting as a portal, and again, this is as an adjunct to the original model, which is operating now and will continue to operate, you cannot vouch for the project that you put up. You put it up. You will need to do some diligence, of course, on the founders, on the related parties. Make sure there's no criminal activity. Make sure that they are cleared. And so we anticipate a lot of the due diligence being the same, and perhaps just as deep as we do now on our deals through our current platform. But the difference is that we can't really stand behind them and say we have evaluated everything and we find this to be a fair and reasonable deal. So it's really more of an investor should always do their own due diligence, but with the broker-dealer light model under Title III, you really can do some screening, but you can't stand behind it with any kind of warranty.
Yeah. Now, Doug, I wonder if you would just take a minute and comment for us on the liability that Todd and Phil have with respect to the operation of their platforms, be it broker-dealer or as a registered portal, FINRA registered portal. Doug, I think your microphone is muted, and we can't hear you. Can you hear us? Doug, we lost you. We can't hear you. I'm sorry. We can see you, but we can't hear you. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. Let me just ask Todd to just comment on that, if you would, for a minute. How does the liability under the new rules get assigned to you? Are you happy with the rules around liability? I know that had been a big concern for people.
Well, I think with any as a broker dealer with any investment banking transaction, there's liability for the broker, and as we understand the rules, the liability that we have, the errors and omissions insurance that that we carry, we feel that it's quantifiable and that it's something that we plan on, and we don't think that it's an onerous burden to assume under the new rules.
Okay. Philip, what about you? Are you comfortable with the liability rules under the new Title III rules that the SEC issued?
Yes, I think it makes sense. You're required to post a fidelity bond, so you must have on file a certain amount of protection, and the portal really has to be a true portal. You can screen the projects coming in, but ultimately it's caveat emptor. Buyer beware in terms of making your own investment decision on that platform. So I'm comfortable with the way it's structured right now.
I think that's a really good insight. I'm glad, because the original thinking, the original draft rules were very disconcerting to some of the investors, or some of the crowdfunding portals especially. Joy, I wonder if you would just take a minute and address the audit requirements. In the original version of the draft rules, there was an audit requirement. That's been removed, at least until you do a second offering. Why do you think that's a big deal for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge deal. A lot of entrepreneurs out there, they're not looking to raise huge amounts of money, and they need something that doesn't have a lot of that isn't going to put a lot of unburden, it's not going to burden them long term, right? So there's huge audit requirements that they need to be continuously following up. That's going to be adding cost to their offerings. It's going to really complicate the process and can be quite expensive and can stop them from even taking that initial step of raising the capital, because it's scary and cumbersome, and quite frankly, will really reduce the overall impact that the investment can make for them in the first place.
Doug, I think we've got you back. Can you hear us? Doug, can you hear us? We can hear Doug, but Doug can't hear us, it seems. So,
can you hear me?
Doug, can you hear? We can hear you. I wonder if you would just take a minute and address that liability question just briefly. We got some feedback from Phil and from Todd, but love to get your take on that as well. So apparently we can hear you, Doug, but you can't hear us. So I apologize for that.
You still can't hear me?
No, we can hear you just fine, Doug. So we were asking you about the liability question for the portals and broker-dealers. How does the final rule work?
So for Title III funding platforms, the way the statute was originally written, funding platforms didn't appear to have much liability whatsoever. However, the way the final rules are ultimately written, the SEC has imposed some responsibilities to the funding platforms beyond what the statute provides, meaning that they do have some level of due diligence responsibility, although they can rely on reps and warranties from the individual issuer. And so it's unclear as to how much diligence a funding platform must do in order to satisfy the SEC imposed responsibilities. My guess is it operates very much like having a due diligence defense. So more is better, and as long as you actually read the documents and do some level of background check, presumably if you get reps and warranties that you can rely on from the issuer, then the funding platform for a Title III deal shouldn't have too much exposure, although they have responsibilities and full underwriter-like responsibility for the misstatements and omissions of the issuer. Whereas with an investment firm that uses special purpose vehicles, they don't have that same level of responsibility, since they're not licensed professionals, but they are fiduciaries under common law standards, and consequently they do have responsibilities both at the time of the original financing and ongoing responsibilities to their investors throughout the duration of the investment.
Okay. Well, Doug, we really appreciate you sharing that insight with us, and apologize for the technical challenges in hearing from you today. But I wonder if we could just ask each of you, and I'll start with you, Joy, to give a little bit of advice. I want you to picture entrepreneurs out there watching this live, trying to figure out how to use crowdfunding to raise money. What's your big tip, your big advice to them? Joy, let's start with you.
Yes, I would say first and foremost to really look at this as a way to, whether it's go to market or to market your good, the goods and services that you sell. Crowdfunding, the true benefit of crowdfunding isn't just in the capital that you're receiving, it's in having a passionate network that is going out and advocating and supporting you. I'll give a great example of this. A friend of mine was actually raising a donation-based for a donation-based product to start a new tech application for banking in Africa for the underbanked. And while she didn't necessarily raise a lot of capital, as it was just a donation-based campaign, what she was able to do is make a lot of great connections that helped further her business. So this is really a way for business owners to get the word out about their company, to grow their network, and they need to take it seriously, because this is a reflection of who you are and how serious you take your business. So if you're not going to do it 100% and prepare and take the time and energy to really do this right, don't do it at all, because it'll hurt your brand in the long run. So take it seriously, prepare, do a good job, and look for more than just money.
Yeah, that's great advice. Phil, I wonder if we could ask you, Philip, to take a minute and give us some advice from your perspective, having been working in the industry now.
Sure. So an entrepreneur can benefit from crowdfunding in multiple ways. Like Joy said, they can actually develop a new base of champions who will tell others about their product, their service, or their project, and put it in the best light possible. What they'll also get is a lot of feedback from those people as well, negative and positive. And really all feedback is good. And I would advise them to really carefully listen to the feedback from the crowd, especially the things that come up again and again, because those are the ways that they need to change their product or service to appeal to the market that they're targeting, or perhaps it means they need to target a slightly different market, but it's very valuable information that they can't really get in any other forum. And then finally, from the perspective of a platform, I would say get all your ducks in a row, get your business plan ready, put your best foot forward, because the platform that's going to evaluate your project is going to want to see that you are someone who will present well, that you have a reasonable plan of action, and that the people associated with the project have some either relevant experience or have a very good well thought out strategic plan to get to the goals that they say they're going to get to.
I think that's great advice. Todd, I wonder if we could look to you to give us a little bit of counsel here as well. What would you counsel an entrepreneur to do as they approach the crowdfunding market?
Well, I concur with what has been said with Joy and Philip, and I guess I would add to what Philip has said, putting your best foot forward. As you do this, really do your homework on the industry, the market, valuations. Make sure your team's in place. We get upwards of 3 to 4 pitches a day that come into to our business to evaluate, and many of those are sloppy, not well thought. They haven't launched their product, but they have a $20 million valuation. And so we just dismiss so many pitches because they're inadequate, not well thought out or prepared. But the ones that have really done their homework and have assembled a team, they've got their MVP, they know what reasonable valuations are in the marketplace. They get our attention, and they get our. We do a full review, and we talk to the founders. We learn more about the company. If they're in the Western United States, we typically get to meet with them and with our San Francisco office or Los Angeles office or Salt Lake. So I think just having a good plan, and this is a plan that this is start your business, and having expectations and reasonable valuation as you do your seed round. This will propel you with these investors to get you to your A round and beyond. So it's really a process that starts here, but it needs to be well thought out and well prepared for.
Yeah, great insights. Doug, I wonder if you would share a tip, some advice to entrepreneurs who are thinking about crowdfunding. Doug, we can't hear you. Let me see if I can help there. Doug, try again. Can you hear you now? I'm afraid we've lost your audio again, Doug. I'm sorry. But I think there are some real important things that we can learn from all of this. I'm particularly interested in the in how you view the rules, and Todd and Phil, you two have to live with these rules. I wonder if you would just share, each of you, and Philip, we can start with you. What was your big surprise in the final rules as you were looking those over? What surprised you? What jumped out at you as being different or a change than from what you'd expected or from the draft rules?
Well, there certainly were several changes. I think one of the biggest ones was that the lack of an audit requirement when raising under $500,000 for the first time, which makes a lot of sense, because otherwise it could be prohibitively expensive if that was necessary, or if an accountant had to review everything and at least certify the financials. Also, there was some debate within the SEC whether someone who made over $100,000 or had over $100,000 in net worth was going to be able to use the lesser or greater than of their net worth or income, and that changed. So, but I think overall, it's fantastic that investors finally, for the first time in 80, 90 years, no matter what their income or net worth is, they can invest in businesses that they care about.
Yeah, it was really good news. It was an interesting drafting area you highlight that really it just was a drafting area about whether it would be greater or lower, and so it was an interesting thing to watch to see how the SEC would ultimately interpret that. And for better or worse, they used a very strict constraint so that investors are fairly limited in how much they can invest. But even with those limits, worst case scenario, even people of modest means are going to be able to invest for the first time ever. Todd, what did you see as the biggest surprise?
Probably the biggest surprise is that they actually got it done. I mean,
I hear that.
The FINRA rules, I mean, so you knew it was coming when the FINRA submitted their rules for funding portals. Yeah. So there was movement there, but there was a lot of naysayers this last year that it may be scrapped, they may have to go back to the drawing board. So the fact that they actually got this, completed, and they were thoughtful in considering both the entrepreneur and the investor, I think that they took the advice of all the comments that were given through this process, which I appreciated, where eliminating some of these restrictions, it really helped what entrepreneurs can do and also what investors can do.
Yeah.
So I think overall we're very happy with the rules.
Responded to all the feedback they got. Hey, Doug, I wonder if you would share with us the biggest surprise you had from the SEC's final rules. What was your biggest surprise?
So let's establish that you can hear me first.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I'm so sorry to everybody. But the quick answer is that they modified when the audit requirement would be required, and for first-time issuers, there is no audit requirement, regardless of the amount of money you're raising in a Title III campaign, and that's a lot of savings for an entrepreneur as well. Procedurally, a lot of entrepreneurs are not set up to go through an audit, and I think it's enlightened to have imposed it upon young entrepreneurs and startups to begin with, since most investors don't care about the audit at that point or stage in the company's life.
Sure. So one of the things I wasn't clear on, Doug, is on your second crowdfund offering, it seemed to me the way I was reading it that you would need an audit regardless of how much you raised. Did I read that and understand that correctly?
I haven't read the details of that, Devin, but that was my understanding as well.
Okay. An interesting development there. It was a little good with the bad, or a little bad with the good. But
there's only a one-time exemption.
Yeah, one-time exemption. Well, listen, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to do this. Let me start with you, Doug, and ask you to tell people how people can get in touch with you if they'd like to learn more about crowdfunding and need your help.
But if you actually want to learn something other than and be able to hear me next time, you can either listen to some of my videos online, go to each
Okay, I think we lost you again, Doug. I'm sorry. Joy, what about you? How can people reach you?
Yeah, so people can reach, also Doug's got a great blog through his company iDisclose, because I know that people were having trouble hearing him. So through iDisclose, a great tool that Doug's got that helps entrepreneurs actually go create a PPM so they can be safe and protected. So iDisclose.com is a great place to get a hold of Doug and his partner, Georgia. For myself, they can go to leverage-pr.com. We've got a blog there, and you're very active on social as well. But thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you, Joy. Philip, how can people get in touch with you and learn more about energy funders?
Well, it's easy. They can just go to energyfunders.com or type energy funders into any search engine and we'll come up. It's completely free to sign up. Whether you are accredited or not accredited or not sure exactly what that means, I'd encourage you to sign up because we're going to be allowing everyone to invest through that bolt-on portal when the laws are effective. So we have a great blog with lots of content so you can educate yourself about energy investments and what to look for. So energyfunders.com. And thank you so much, Devin. I really appreciate being a part of this panel.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your time today, Philip. And Todd, how do people reach out, learn more about you and Seed Equity Ventures?
So just go to seedequity.com and you can view companies, join the community. You can like and follow companies. You can ask founders questions. So it's a real-time activity feed and communications portal for both entrepreneurs and investors.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I thank all of you for taking the time to be with us this morning. This afternoon. It's been a great discussion. I appreciate your time and wish you every success in the great work you're doing.
Thank you, Devin.
Thank you, Devin.
All righty. Let's do some good.